Anne to the brave frogs of Wartwood, Sasha to the strong toads in the tower, and Marcy to the wise newts of Newtopia, winding up exactly where these three needed to be for the world to be saved. Was it destiny or sheer luck? What if things had come differently? The girls would definitely not be able to smile today. What if Anne was teleported to Toad Tower instead, while Marcy was in Wartwood and Sasha in Newtopia? When Anne opens her eyes, she finds herself in a jail cell, having already been caught by Captain Grime. After briefly being put in the picture about the world she is currently in, Grime immediately begins questioning her harshly. Where did she come from? And what is that strange music box she had with her? Anne refuses to comply with him because of his unpleasant personality and outrageously rude behavior towards his subordinates. Luckily, Grime refrains from reporting Anne's presence as well as the obtainment of a music box to Andrias. Somehow, Anne can relate to the Toad soldiers, having long been bossed around by Sasha, so she makes friends with many of them. However, unlike Sasha, she is not manipulative and does not even consider talking the soldiers into abandoning their posts, like Sasha did to bamboozle Grime. Because of that, Percy never leaves Toad Tower and doesn't attract the nearby herons, meaning that no chance occurs for Anne to change the situation she's in. More importantly even, without the heron attack, Grime does not become painfully aware of his flawed abilities as a leader, and also doesn't gain a capable right hand. The Toad army stays the way it is, while Anne counts the days in her cell until one day an opportunity arises. That opportunity is connected to Marcy, so before we explore how Anne escapes the tower, we are following up on Marcy's time in Wartwood. Considering that in the original timeline, Marcy managed to get hurt the most out of the three girls, despite being teleported to the safest place in Amphibia, there's a good chance she straight up dies in the amphibian wilderness. But that route is boring. Instead, Marcy does not place a trap like Anne did, given that she is very busy studying the foreign flora and fauna, so Sprig is not caught. When he finds her, Marcy immediately acts friendly towards him, making Sprig realize that she's far from the monster Wally described. They do not have to fight the mantis because they go back to the village relatively soon. And that's good, because no one would have survived that. What's more, due to Marcy's clumsy personality, he wonders how Marcy survived in the woods, which is why he begs Harpap to let her stay with them. She obviously needs their help. He believes them, because Marcy catches fire. HP is glad he took Marcy in, as the two of them quickly bond over farming and plants and stuff. In this timeline, Harpap and Marcy are kind of like the new Sprig and Anne. Next to the Plantar family, Marcy is slowly but surely accepted by the other villagers, due to improving life in the village, similar to how she did in Newtopia. For real this time, not like in New Wartwood. Several weeks pass until Harpap decides to run for mayor. Knowing Marcy, she probably studied Amphibia's political system and advises Harpap to campaign throughout the entire valley. One way or another, HP grows into an icon for the rebellion against the Toads. Not tolerating this kind of disobedience, Grime schemes to get rid of Harpap. Without a sharp gal like Sasha though, the Toad army can't possibly come up with a plan as clever as to deceive the villagers. Thus they simply march to Wartwood head on. Despite their physical disadvantages, the frogs of Wartwood can actually defeat the Toads. Marcy's presence in the village makes this all the likelier. Over the course of her stay, she has made all kinds of improvements to the village, including defense mechanisms, originally meant to fight off giant mantises and the likes. Luckily, these work against basically any type of foe, so that the Toads already have a hard time even getting into Wartwood. Over and above, back on Earth, Marcy learned everything there is to know about frogs and Toads. To beat them, she can use knowledge even hidden to the Toads themselves. For instance, if Toads come into contact with vinegar, they feel a burning sensation on their skin, and vinegar can easily be gained from apples, apples, barley, or oats. Assuming that Marcy has already prepared some vinegar in an earlier episode for any kind of experiment, or really did create it to ward off toads following the events of toe tags, Grime's army can be driven back to the tower and HP is saved. Now this is already a big difference to the OT. Given that Toad Tower is not destroyed, the army doesn't leave Grime, what in turn means Grime is not hunted as a traitor and Anne still stays imprisoned. However, at the beginning of the assault, arrogant as he is, Grime teased Marcy by revealing to her he keeps another human in the tower. She is not powerful enough to defeat Grime on her own, thus can't force him to release her friend. Therefore, after the fight, she attempts bargaining. Grime would be willing to exchange Anne for HP, but evidently Marcy does not agree to that condition. Alternatively, he demands Marcy to work for him. He explains when she has built enough weapons of science for him, he might consider letting Anne go, fully intending to never release either of them. Vinegar throwers, salt grenades, and fire fits. Looking upon all the gadget Grime gathers under his control, later on, he is becoming delusional, believing his army alone has become strong enough to stand up to the crown. During her time at Toad Tower, Marcy is being tightly guarded, but due to her lovable personality, the soldiers come to like her a lot. She talks to them nicely like Grime never would, randomly puts them to work, making them feel appreciated, and listens to their troubles. Consequently, they let their guard down around her, creating an opening for Marcy to establish a way of secretly talking to Anne without them noticing it. Together, the two of them cook up an escape plan that also includes snatching away the calamity box from Grime. The latter aspect is relatively easy. Marcy convinces the already drunken on power Grimesy that she really absolutely needs the box for the new weapon she's building. The former, however, could literally be anything. Maybe Marcy sneaks some tools into Anne's cell so that she can break through the walls. Or Marcy creates a diversion with fireworks to go and free Anne. Drop a comment if you have another cool idea. Anyhow, until their escape plan is finally put into action, a lot of time has passed and the ice caps surrounding the valley have melted. It is now once again possible to leave the valley. Therefore, Marcy had sent a letter to the Plantars, telling them everything about her and Anne's plan and requesting their aid. When the day arrives that Marcy and Anne flee the tower, the Plantars are already waiting for them in the wagon on a nearby road, ready to depart to Newtopia. While the girls and the Plantars are traveling, Grime learns from the people of Wartwood that they have left for the capital. Being aware that they will definitely report the past weeks to Andrias, Grime realizes that he will officially be deemed a traitor for secretly building weapons. There is only one chance. He must strike first, before becoming the hunted. From this point on, he seriously begins preparing for a full-on rebellion. In the following weeks, he seeks counsel from his fellow toads, managing to persuade them to follow his cause through portraying the overwhelming powers of his new weaponry. We will later return to Grime's schemes, but first we want to look at what Sasha has been up to in Newtopia, so we can discuss her reunion with Anne and Marcy next. Right after being teleported to Newtopia, Sasha kind of causes mayhem in the city, being grossed out by the nudes. She can't wrap her head around being treated as the weirdo by giant talking amphibians, and starts getting angry, before picking a fight with the guards and being arrested. A little while later, Andrias sets her free because of his great interest in the strange prisoner. Having been imprisoned until a minute ago and generally having no reason to trust a monster dude, Sasha does not answer any of Andrias' questions, pretending to know of nothing. Still, she is treated outstandingly nice, as a guest of the king himself. Despite getting into many arguments with Lady Olivia, who dislikes her cheeky behavior, Sasha grows accustomed to her new lifestyle. What does not go unnoticed by Andrias. Having realized he can buy her favor with power and freedom, he offers her an important position. Soon, Sasha has become a true member of the royal guard and ends up spilling the beans to Andrias. Though she doesn't know much, Andrias gets to know that two other humans and the calamity box are in Amphibia. Not long after, Anne, Marcy, and the Plantars arrive in Newtopia. The girls are all gathered in Newtopia. There's no conflict between them, and none of them are plotting to betray the others in the future. Before all else, Marcy lets Andrias in on Grime's doings and provides detailed information regarding the weapons she was forced to build. During the following weeks, she is put in charge of developing countermeasures, as Andrias already suspects that Grime is preparing for an assault. At the same time, one after another, the girls recharge their gemstones, thereby unknowingly giving up their respective powers. Even Anne loses them for good, because with Sasha there, she does not have to worry about the others when she hears them scream. Given that she's aware, Sasha would be perfectly capable of protecting everyone if necessary. After charging the third gem, the girls could just open the box and go home. But surprise, surprise, they don't. This time around, Sasha has been influenced by Andrias in exactly the same manner that Marcy originally was. Andrias promised if she delivered the box to him, she could stay in Amphibia forever, bossing servants around, maybe even getting control of her very own battalion. Considering that she is basically living her dream, she agrees, as she does not really desire to return home. Consequently, they come back to the capital ready to hand over the box. However, Grime has other plans. The attack on Newtopia begins. In contrast to the OT, where Sasha derived the devious plan to infiltrate the castle and made it possible in the first place, in this timeline the war tactics are rather played by the book. As an important part of the Newtopian army, Sasha is sent to the front lines to deal with the situation, just as Marcy, who is occupied with countering Grime's weapons. Andrias doesn't want to let the chance slip and attempts taking the box from Anne, while the others are gone. She and the Plantars manage to hold out just long enough. In the nick of time, Sasha and Marcy return before Anne is killed, having brought the rebellion under control to such a degree that does not longer require their assistance. Anne cries out for help, explaining that Andrias is actually evil. Andrias tries to put the blame on Anne though, manipulatively asking Sasha if she does not trust him anymore. Sasha hesitates, thereby allowing Andrias to swiftly take a step back to connect the box to the castle. He reveals his deal with Sasha to the others so that the situation is similar to the OT True Colors. Marcy's original betrayal still took place, but is not unveiled by Andrias, given that him and Marcy have never gotten close. As a side note, she may have discussed her mistakes with the Plantars, and as a part of her character development, she might have told Anne and Sasha about why they were teleported. Their relationship would still take a big hit, but everything should be easier to forgive when she properly explains herself instead of her lies being exposed by someone else. Anyway, now that he has secured the box, Andrias quickly wants to get rid of the girls and the Plantars. As he steps away from the box, Grime, who has snuck into the throne room as a last resort, steals the box and threatens to destroy it. Assuming that the Frobos who could have defeated Grime and the other toads have not yet arrived, the remaining toads can now easily infiltrate the city and seize control. Everyone, including Andrias, is arrested. Presumably, they cannot escape. For once, there is no secret to this, because they are sitting in a normal prison, without a secret passage or something along these lines, and they were stripped of all useful items. All but one, the most useful item of all. None of the toads actually cared to take the crown from Andrias' head, meaning that he can still contact the core. The two agree that the whole plan is ruined if Andrias does not get out of there now. As a very final last resort, the core storms out of the dungeon to break Andrias free. That's about all they can do in their current state though. They can't fight, and running does not make any sense. Thus the only option left is taking Andrias to the dungeon ASAP, where they immediately make him their new host. Now that the core has finally regained a body, a strong and durable one at that, they are going on a rampage. Fortunately, in their prior distress, all their thoughts were focused on on securing the core's survival by transferring them to Andrias. Consequently, they did not go after the calamity box. So, while Andrias was being overtaken by the core, the main characters also profited from the huge hole in the prison walls and fled back to Wartwood. Similar to most of the toads, who never changed for the better due to Sasha's absence, and are still just a bunch of scaredy cats. In other words, Grime is also forced to retreat, not being able to face the core on his own. Smart as he is, he takes the box with him. Following all that has happened over the course of the past few days, he has come to understand how important the box really is, but how little he knows about it. At least he knows Andrias must not lay his fingers on it again. Therefore, he also travels to Wartwood, hoping to encounter the girls there. Given the circumstances, they agree on a truce and discuss their options. Conceivably, they could just teleport to Earth, separating the core from the box for eternity. However, how could they leave Amphibia and all those who are dear to them behind, knowing damn well the core is going to lay everything to waste? Okay, so they stay in Amphibia, but what can they even do? Remember that at this point, they still basically don't know anything, not having met the Mother of Foams, neither about the prophecy nor about the powers. Not being aware of the anime powers at their hands, they begin gathering fellow rebels, which is by the way an outstandingly more promising undertaking than in the OT, considering that the core is currently not controlling the castle and the robot army. Admittedly, that also means there are fewer people who actually see the need to rebel, but at least all the toads and the newts from the capital lend their support. More importantly, however, Valeriana hears word of the rebellion and the latest tidings. Because it was never properly revealed how much she really knew all along, we can assume that she either tells the girls about the prophecy and the powers, or that she sends them out to meet Mother Rome. Either way, the girls wind up regaining their full calamity powers. The final showdown can now begin. There's an easy way this could go down, and one that's a tad more like the original ending. The easy alternative consists of the girls just beating Andrias / the core to a pulp. In contrast to the OT, all three fully powered up girls are now fighting the core, which is not connected to the moon. This isn't much of a close call. Chances are quite good the trio blows them up entirely before they get the chance to escape. Everyone's saved. The girls go home and can actually keep the box around to see their amphibian friends once in a while. Or, well, being a little more realistic, the core ditches Andrias super early into the fight, heading straight for the moon, as they realize keeping up with the calamity powers is not possible. Exactly like in the OT, the moon is falling, forcing the girls to make use of the secret spell. Originally, Anne applied it. Firstly, because she was the most capable at using the powers. Secondly, because Amphibia meant the most to her. On this timeline, they are all equally proficient in using the powers. Reviewing each girl's experiences in Amphibia, frankly, Marcy had the best time, completely contrasting the OT. Accordingly, Amphibia probably means the most to her, implying that she would take on this fateful task, not forgetting that this is all her fault in the end. She confessed to Anne and Sasha earlier on, and despite being more or less forgiven, this is also a perfect opportunity to atone. Well, you already know how the rest of the story goes. Marcy dies, Marcy meets the Guardian and is revived. On this timeline, despite her initially very flawed personality, her unspeakably great development convinced the Guardian that she is worthy of becoming their successor at some point in the future. For now, everyone's happy. Yeah, I mean it. This what if really has a happy ending. Weird. Marcy's betrayal, one of the worst things to happen in the OT, ends up saving the world. Just like Grime causing even more chaos than in the original, playing an even bigger part in opposing the evil. Sasha, in contrast, did not act like much of a jerk and still hurt her friends. Anne was almost a minor character on this timeline, while Marcy took all the spotlight. Sure, some of the iconic relations and situations from the OT are lost. But to be honest, this timeline offers amazing alternatives. I mean, the core accepting Andrias as its host out of pure desperation and still being completely destroyed in the end, that's huge. Maybe in an alternative version of our reality, this is what the show is really like. Or perhaps it's more like one of these what ifs.